The other thing that I think is important, and I believe we've talked about this before, is that we have gone to storing data in the cloud now. And so that gives us the ability to take our body-worn camera data and the other data that we have from our vehicles, and we can store that now without putting a lot of pressure on our system.
We are getting to that point of getting that system. Not quite there yet, but we are hopefully getting to that point soon. But that's the ultimate goal.
That's the direction we're headed in, which is all to have that data available in the cloud. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I hope you don't mind my asking this question, is that what are our policies in terms of our ability to preserve data, even though that data or evidence hasn't been requested to be reserved by a citizen, but because of our experience and understanding of the process that our police officers are involved in, do we, on occasion or ever, on our own volition, collect that data and preserve it without being requested to do so?
So the videos themselves, let's take our body-worn camera videos, for example. Our policy states that we're required to save them for 60 days, and so they're at least preserved that long. The biggest issue that we run into with video data is, even with moving toward the cloud, it's still a tremendous amount of space, and it's incredibly expensive even to, I would love to go back and be able to say that we can save videos for so long, and hopefully we'll have a higher capability of doing that. But of course, we still reach limits of what's possible. So again, that's for the videos that are essentially not requested or at 60 days, but so many of our videos are connected to additional cases, right, that gets preserved, whether it be by the city attorney request or by the prosecuting attorney. So by virtue of that, many of the cases that we run into, the videos have been preserved much longer than initial 60 days.
Thank you.
I also want to add in, when we do the investigations of PCRs and we have those videos, we also save those videos.
Thank you. Any questions? Any additional questions? Thank you. And again, the board appreciates receiving this detailed information. It's very helpful. And we will be having conversations about how we can aggregate that data and have it make up sense, not only to the board, but to the public. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Dusick, let's review the activity tracker.
I have nothing to add to the current activity tracker. However, I'd like to mention that our intern, Josh Schaefer, is going to be reaching out to the subcommittee members to request availability to get something on everyone's calendar yet this summer so we can get moving on this. And we are also finalizing the 2022 annual report, and we plan on presenting that at an upcoming CSCRAB meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. If you take a look at the activity tracker, we have consolidated some of the activities and merged them to gain some efficiencies and to perhaps be able to do the work a little quicker. With that thought in mind, what I am requesting is that we have someone other than the chair chair and be responsible for each one of the activities. As the chair, I would serve on each one of the subcommittees, but I would not serve as the lead on that particular subcommittee, which I have done in the past. And so if the board concurs, if you look at the activity tracker, Mr. Howe would be the lead, and I would, of course, be a member. If you look at our community awareness and access activities, either Mr. Garcia or Mr. Gardner would be the lead, and I would be a member. And the same thing would hold true for oversight. I would be a member, Ms. Miller or Ms. Stapleton would be the lead. And Mr. Caldwell and Mr. Tolbert, of course, are the leads for our board retreat and our traffic stop study information. Is that a direction that the board's comfortable with? Yeah. Good. So I'm perceiving that there's a consensus that we can move in that direction. Thank you so much. I am so excited. Okay. Orientation.
Thank you, Chair Payne. As you can see on the board in front of us, and also it's in your packet, the printed handout, I will go through the new member orientation, policies, and procedures. This is our Kalamazoo Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board, and we are proud to present this new hire orientation to Ms. Hemphill. The board authority by the city manager under administrative authority granted by the Kalamazoo City Charter, created the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board. The purpose is to provide an opportunity for the city manager to receive input from a citizen board prior to deciding appeals filed with him pursuant to the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety's General Order 16. There are additional roles as well. One is to build more credibility, community trust, and confidence by creating a process that will respond appropriately to allegations of misconduct by the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. Number two, respond to requests from the city manager on the disposition of inquiries and complaints, as well as the complaint process. And number three, serve in an advisory role to the city manager regarding possible improvements to the policies and procedures, the complaint process, communication and outreach to citizens. Our board membership includes 12 members appointed by the city manager, up to 6 at-large members, up to 6 members from designated groups, appointed for 1 3-year term, may be appointed for a second 3-year term, may not serve for more than 2 consecutive terms, full or partial. The designated groups include, and these are examples only, El Concilio, formerly known as the Hispanic American Council, Family House Center, Gospel Mission, Griffin Place, Mothers of Hope, NAACP, Neighborhood Associations, the Northside Ministerial Alliance, and Outfront Kalamazoo. In the membership selection process, candidates interested in serving on the board shall submit an application along with a letter of interest, including a statement of their background, reason for consideration, and other information deemed appropriate for consideration. The city manager may schedule an interview with the selected candidates to assist him or her in finalizing the membership list for the board. The city manager will make the final selection of the board. The city manager will annually name the chair of the board from the list of board members. The membership qualifications include U.S. citizen or legal U.S. resident. Residency, full-time residents of the city of Kalamazoo are given first priority. Second priority is given to persons with an identifiable interest located within the city of Kalamazoo, a willingness to spend approximately 4 or 5 hours a calendar quarter reviewing cases and attending meetings, their willingness to make a 3-year commitment, and willingness to attend this orientation session. The membership disqualifiers are serving a sentence for a criminal conviction or while on probation or parole, subject to active personal protection order, holding any political office or an announced candidate for political office, working for another law enforcement agency, a current City of Kalamazoo employee, an immediate family member of any Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety personnel or current C-SCRAB board member, and lastly, a retired or former law enforcement officer. Staff support for C-SCRAB includes the city manager designee, liaison, does not participate in deliberations or vote on recommendations of the board. The public safety chief designee attends all appeal hearings, attends meetings when requested by the board or city manager, does not participate in the deliberations of the board. The city attorney or designee is a legal advisor to our board. In the event of an ethical conflict, shall be recused, and separate legal counsel will be arranged for the board. The board member responsibilities include maintaining confidentiality, avoid a conflict of interest, personal, professional, or financial, behave in a manner that maintains public confidence in the fairness, impartiality, and integrity of the appeal and review process, refrain from making any prejudicial comments with respect to complainants or public safety officers, participate in required orientation and other training opportunities. Removal or suspension from the board, misfeasance, unintentional wrongdoing, malfeasance, intentional wrongdoing, failure to attend meetings, 3 unexcused and/or consecutive meetings in a 12-month period, conviction of a criminal offense after appointment to the board, change in circumstances that implicate any membership disqualifier, as we discussed earlier, demonstrated bias or prejudice that preclude objective consideration of appeal cases on their merit. The complaint process includes file the complaint with the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety and the Office of Professional Standards. The Office of Professional Standards will investigate the case and issue the findings. The complainant will be notified of the resolution of the case by letter, which will also state that they can appeal to the city manager within 15 days, business days. The city manager shall refer the request for appeal to the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeals Board. The appeals are then referred to C-SCRAB by the city manager, will be scheduled within 30 business days of the filing of the appeal. The board will make recommendations to the city manager within 14 business days after the conclusion of the hearing. The city manager has final authority to sustain or reverse a finding of the chief which has been appealed to C-SCRAB. Disposition of claims. The chief and/or his/her designee shall review all complaints adhering to the following. If the complaint is a criticism of operating policies or procedures and a change is justified, the chief, in conjunction with staff, shall develop and implement the necessary changes. Non-criminal policy violations shall be reviewed for progressive discipline. If criminal sanctions are indicated, an offense report shall be written and submitted to the county prosecutor or city attorney for review. The board's authority, the board's scope of authority when considering an appeal shall be limited to considering decisions made by the Chief of Public Safety at the conclusion of the Public Safety Community Relations, PCR, complaint process. The board shall have the authority to hear an appeal from any PCR finding in which the chief has made a finding of exonerated, unfounded misconduct not based on the complaint or not sustained, and to recommend to the city manager that the chief's finding be changed to sustained under Department of Public Safety Order 16. PCR findings. Exonerated means especially of an official body absolve someone from blame for a fault or wrongdoing, especially after due consideration of the case. Not sustained, the investigation failed to disclose sufficient evidence to prove or disprove the allegations made in the complaint. Sustained, a fair preponderance of the evidence obtained in the investigation established that the accused person's action constituted misconduct. Unfounded, no. Adjudicated, basis for the charge or accusation. Misconduct not based on complaint, other policy violations were found. The board's authority. The board shall not have the authority to hear an appeal when the chief has sustained the complaint. The board shall not have the authority to either impose discipline on any employee or to recommend that discipline be imposed or increased in a particular instance. The hearing. The appeal hearing will be open to the public if an open hearing is requested by the complainant. If an open hearing is not requested by the complainant, the hearing shall be closed to the public. The board's deliberations will be closed to the public. Abstention. Conflict of interest. A board member shall abstain from any consideration of a complaint if she or he has a demonstrated personal bias or prejudice or the appearance thereof in the outcome of a complaint. Examples of personal bias. Having a familial relationship, close relationship, or close working relationship with any party material to the complaint. Witnessing events material to the complaint. Being a party to the complaint. Holding a bias for or against a particular party that is sufficient to impair the board member's impartiality. Having a financial interest in the outcome of the complaint. The appeal confidentiality. Board members shall maintain complete confidentiality concerning all appeals pending a final written report is presented to the city manager. There's no discussion, including among other board members, except at scheduled meetings. Board members will not investigate independently outside of the board meeting. The documents will include the investigation file, interview transcripts, police reports, and other relevant documents. The complainant may request that a personal information not germane to the appeal be deleted from any document. Witnesses. The complainant may appear in person before the board, but the board shall not hear from other witnesses or from city employees other than the chief or his/her designee. The board also may make a written request for further investigation by the chief of public safety or his/her designee or the city staff member assigned to work with the board. Recommendations. The board shall prepare a written recommendation for submission to the city manager, setting forth its findings and conclusions, and, based on its findings and conclusions, shall recommend that the city manager either sustain or reverse the chief's findings. The board's report shall contain such comments and criticism of the chief's finding as a majority of the board feels are appropriate. The recommendation should be submitted to the city manager no later than 14 business days after the conclusion of the hearing. The city manager may ask the board in writing to clarify its conclusion. And then the findings. The city manager shall have the final authority to sustain or reverse a finding of the chief which has been appealed to the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board.
Thank you, Ms. Dusick. Question. On the issue of investigations, I've noticed, especially of late, that citizens are using social media to put forth their versions or their views of their interactions with public safety officers. And some of the information out there is quite graphic in terms of what they share. And so my question is, as a citizen, as a board member, you can't wall yourself off from social media. But because you're getting this information from the citizen's point of view, does that constitute an investigation on the part of a board member?
Chief Green, Chief Green, do you mind answering that question for me?
Chairman, could you repeat the last part of the question one more time?
If I am in Facebook or some other social media and a citizen is graphically displaying their version of an interaction with a public safety officer, does that constitute my doing an outside investigation of a complaint that may come to the board, quite simply?
No, sir, it does not. And the interesting thing is that oftentimes we receive information from citizens that if it's dealt with a criminal case, so the social media is helpful at times.
Okay, thank you. That was my opinion.
Yes.
But I want to have some clarity for not only myself, but for the board, because the amount of social media engagement out there by our citizens is amazing.
That is true.
And the things that they are able to record and to publish are amazing. And we can't wall ourselves off from that. So I want to be very clear about the fact that board members are going to be exposed to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so
We
much.
understand. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Also, they would have to file a complaint, wouldn't they?
Yes, correct. When the person files the complaint, it activates the
Okay.
investigation.
Okay.
Larry Tolbert. Also, there could also be someone who just witnessed the incident and file a third-party complaint.
Yeah. Yeah, we're working on third party. So it'd be third party complaints. It could be a direct complaint. However the complaint may come in, we will investigate it.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Board member comments, please. One comment and a suggestion. We all have Citizen Public Safety Review and Appeal Board business cards. And it's been my personal experience since we've got those cards that I have all kinds of opportunities to share that information with citizens in our community. Every clerk at every grocery store that I patronize has got my card. I haven't quite got Mount Zion covered yet with all of the cards, but they're going out there too. And so what I'm suggesting is that we can be a valuable tool to connect our citizens with the process through those cards that we have, and not wait until we ask for a card necessarily, but to be proactive and to provide those cards. I've gone through one box of cards, and I offer that as a suggestion to my fellow board members as a way to build our relationship with the community. So I simply want to share that with you. Thank you. Any other board comments? Yes, Mr. Tolbert?
Yes, we had, a couple of years ago, we decided that we were going to get out in the community and have meetings at, places in different neighborhoods, just to let them know what the Citizen Public Safety Review and Appeals Board does and, be more accessible to them. A lot of people in the community are just hearing about it. And as you see from the people we have out in the audience, a lot of people don't know about it, right? So I think we should still make that effort into making sure that they know they have an option when it comes to public safety, and that they can file an appeal here, even though, the appeal that the city manager has the final say. At least they can come and present their appeal to this board, and it will be reviewed.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Tolbert, and I couldn't agree more. I think that the board's efforts in that to get out into the community and do the listening sessions and to interact with the community were stalled during the COVID period, where there was some issues there with contact with the community. But we have been engaging with the community through various agencies and trying to get our footprint out there on their social networks, on their web pages, so that some of their constituents can just hit the button, the board button on their web page and get the information they need quickly without us having to be there. But I totally agree with you. We need to do more outreach, and we need to do more in-person contact with the board, which brings us to, I think, the need to adjust the board's policies to go beyond what I have read as 12 hours or so a year in time commitment, if I remember the policies correctly. The way that this board is functioning now with the subcommittees, and with what Mr. Tolbert points out, which is very accurate, that time commitment has increased. And so I think it's very, very important during orientation that every board member understand that it's going to take a little bit more than an hour and a half or 2 hours a month to get the work done. So, and we'll be working on that as we go forward with having new leadership on some of our subcommittees. We'll be addressing those issues. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We have no in-person comments. Call-in comments, please.
I'll check just one moment. Chair Payne, there are no call-in comments.
To Mr. Tolbert's point, our upcoming meetings are August 9th and September 13th. During the interim, we will be contacted by Josh to set up the meetings for our subcommittees and other meetings that we need to have. So good to see all of you, and with that said, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second, please. Second. Moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Good to see y'all.